Yeah.
Yes.
Are we okay? All right.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and start. Oh, that would be me.
You have to call the
Okay.
meeting to order, ma'am.
I call this meeting to order at 5:35 p.m. on March 26, 2021. This meeting, this virtual meeting of the La Jolla Housing Authority Commissioners Board is called to order. Please state your name, commissioners, for the record.
Jorge Bazan, Vice Chair.
Present.
Berta Mireles, Commissioner.
Is present. Filomena Leo, Chair, present. Also present are staff members. Mr. Ruben Villarreal, Executive Director. Ms. Lulu Cardenas. What is the title, sir?
She's a housing specialist.
Housing Specialist. Welcome, Ms. Cardenas. And Amanda Valdez, Finance
Coordinator.
Coordinator. Thank you. I'll get the titles right eventually. Welcome all. We are not in the presence of a flag, but if you have one in your vicinity, or we will please
I will find you one. Hold on.
recite the Pledge of Allegiance. What are you doing, sir?
Finding your flag.
Okay. It doesn't have to wave.
And we have a flag. I'll present one for the camera. How about that?
All together. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States
of
of America
and
and
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it
which
stands,
stands one nation,
One nation under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Oh,
Thank you. The invocation, with your permission, I will do myself. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us to this date, to this moment. We thank you for the many blessings we have received, and we ask for your continued love and guidance over all business that we transact on behalf of the residents of the La Jolla Housing Authority and the community of La Jolla. We ask that you maintain your merciful watch over everyone, and that everyone, not only in our country, but in our world, will soon be past this virus. Thank you, Father, for all that you give us every day of our lives. Amen.
amen.
Spirit, amen. The first item we have is approval of minutes of previous meetings. I am assuming, commissioners, that you had some time to look over the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to be made to the minutes?
no, not at this time. I move that we approve the previous board meeting minutes from December 29, 2020.
December 29th. Thank you. We have a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Mireles. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Villarreal, correct me if I'm wrong, before we go into the other items of the agenda. I can call for a motion. The motion is made, and then we have discussion on the item. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
That works. Mhm.
Okay. I would like to recommend that a motion be made to approve items 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are all policy statements, that
Correct.
we approve them in one motion, but we'll have discussion. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I so move that we approve those items as presented in the agenda.
Thank you. Second?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Mireles, Mr. Bazan, and Ms. Mireles. We have a motion to approve items 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so now we will have discussion. On these items, I have a few things. Mr. Villarreal,
Yes, ma'am.
for the sake of uniformity, I would like to recommend you that each of these policy statements follow the same title format. You have collection, loss, and write-off, this one, on plain white paper. Then you have the public comment under plain heading. Then you have records management and the records management on formal letterhead. As a follow-up, would you please, and for future reference, all of the policy statements either be done on the letterhead or all of them follow this format, whatever it is you choose to do, but to have consistency.
I'll make that, ma'am. I'll do that.
Maybe when you clean these up to present to HUD, maybe they go on letterhead, but that's just a minor little thing for me that kind of threw me off. Now then, questions. Do any of you commissioners have specific questions on any of these policy statements? Well, we'll take them one at a time. Policy number 5, the collection, loss, and write-off policy. Any questions?
No, not at the moment.
Let me explain what this is exactly. The La Jolla Housing Authority has never had any kind of policy that basically handles people that don't pay us, people in arrears that leave us with pending balances. There was no mechanism in place for us to properly handle it. It was one of the action items in our action plan to have a policy, and this policy was actually drafted according to NELROD. NELROD's one of the more established providers of policies, but I did customize it. It's very, very in keeping with a formula that's similar to a business in the sense that it gives you an ability to go and try to collect on the person who doesn't pay us or skips on the responsibilities. The only thing I can tell you that it's of interest here is that basically what you have is uncollectible people that leave because they do leave suddenly and they don't advise you and they might owe you money. Now, I will tell you that under our administration, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen where it's so extreme. But in the past, and I want to say in the past, before October of 2019, some people owed sizable amounts who hadn't paid the housing authority in 6 months plus. So you have substantial balances. We're going to be making sure that doesn't happen to us. But in any case, if somebody does do that, we need a mechanism. Also important to mention, Dr. Leo, that this policy provides for us to be able to bring on somebody, SARMA. I don't know if you're familiar with SARMA. SARMA is a real common organization that does collections. They're very established and they're very reputable, and they do a lot of this. So this policy gives us finally a way to properly address any outstanding balances that we have within our system, and that we can provide this information to our accountant so he may identify it correctly.
I particularly like that, let's see, statement number, where is it? That a quarterly report will be made to our board?
That's correct.
Okay.
Like every quarter, basically, we're going to see if we have bad, hopefully we won't have, but if we have called bad debt, it will be reported to you. And you'll know exactly what our status is for that concern.
Somebody has other conversation coming in. On page number 3, Mr. Villarreal, page number 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Item number 5, letter A, The executive director shall ensure the fiscal year-end financial data schedule, blah, blah. Yes, that's to be expected. On letter A, it does not include fraud receivables. What is that? Fraud receivables in the tenant's accounts receivable balance.
I'm going to try to explain it best I possibly can. I think that's a term more for accounting, but fraud receivables in the tenant accounts receivable balance. I want to say suspect charges, perhaps things that aren't validated through careful documentation. So everything that we are going to put on as a debt has to be verified. There's no kind of gray area. It's either they owe it or they don't.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you go to the next one, it also mentions things like late charges and excess utility fees.
But fraud receivables insinuates that the tenant has committed fraud. And it says may be accrued from tenants who have committed fraud and owe additional rent.
Well, that also might point to a tenant not being less than upfront about the information they provide us about their income.
When they come in.
So that may be what it that particular wording was, I guess, pulled from the direct NELROD document. Yeah. So if I'm going to try to understand the best I possibly can, assuming that a tenant doesn't give us proper documentation and is using some sort of fraudulent information to lower their rent.
Okay.
Which does happen, but it does happen. And if we find out, we have to take proper measures.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And item letter B, and you've already referenced twice that these documents were pulled from NELROD.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure samples, but would you please write out the word miscellaneous?
Very well, ma'am.
And then at the very bottom, letter C, last line, shall not be allowed to return to occupant on PHA property. Again, that's, I think, the template that was used. Please put on there on La Jolla Housing Authority property.
Yes, ma'am, I will.
The old English teacher in me just can't resist. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you so. I think you'd probably want to throw HUD out the window because they use acronyms to no end.
Sure.
There's an acronym vocabulary and dictionary that exists out there, and I've had to refer it many times.
I don't doubt it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They have many acronyms.
All right.
I'll make those adjustments, ma'am.
Thank you. Item number 6. The La Jolla Housing Authority Public Comment Policy. Commissioners, any questions on the public comment policy?
This one was very much, I want to say, composed and drafted by me, ma'am. I grabbed several examples. I want to say half a dozen. Some were as long as 5 pages long. Some were as, well, it's not true. The shortest one I found was about 2 pages long, but I pulled the highlights, if you will, that give us the most amount of protection with the least amount of words. And it still allows accessibility to the tenant and or the person who wants to question our board. We are very open about what we do. Sure. But some of the interesting items here is that the public comment section should go no more than 15 minutes. Now, can it go longer? Yes, but that's up to the chair. If the chair chooses to have more speakers, you absolutely have within your realm of your authority. This just gives you a basic guideline. And you also see here that each speaker can speak for 3 minutes and they cannot pass on their time to another individual. It's their time for 3 minutes to speak. And those are really the highlights. Another thing that I want to tell you that's important is you have not seen a public comment policy in our agendas because, I'm sorry, a public section addition to it is because we didn't have a policy to address it. So
we will see that now.
Yes, ma'am. You will after this meeting. Very important to mention the last thing that, and I'll tell you because I did see on a different one and I think is important. Should we ever start recording our meetings through video or whatever capacity. If that happens, the public comment section is not included. That's done intentional because all that you want to present on that video is the business at hand. And what's happened in the past, I read something about this, that people will take that and they know it's going to be publicized over a media. They'll sometimes make a statement and they'll create an environment that has nothing to do with business and more to do with whatever they may feel is their own agenda.
So we don't want to give them a bully pulpit. We don't want to give people an opportunity to just get on the air. Okay.
Should it ever happen? I mean, right now we don't have that system in place, but this is looking forward in case we ever decide to go that route.
Okay, going back up to statement number 1. A public comment period not to exceed 15 minutes will be at the beginning or end of each regular and special meeting. Are we to tell you today, should we not agree? Will it be at the beginning or the end? This leaves it open.
That leaves it, some boards and councils have it at the beginning, some have it at the end. It leaves it at the discretion of you as the chair to advise me and tell me, I want it in the beginning, I want it at the end. It's preference. That's why I put it that way, where it gives you the option. If you ever decided that you think it's best at the end, you simply tell me, and within the provisions of this, I can do it easily, either or.
Mr. Balzan, Ms. Nireles, do you have a preference? Do you think this should come at the beginning of the meeting and then we go on to business, or at the end of the meeting? Do you all have a preference?
I think it would be better at the beginning, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
So we can, go ahead and pretty much listen to what they have to say, their concerns or whatever, and move along with the meeting afterward.
You want me to make that change, ma'am? If you want, I can make it beginning.
Yes, I'm in agreement at the beginning. If we find that this presents a problem, we can come back and make an adjustment.
There's also a possibility, ma'am, just if you read it here and left it wide open, some councils and some boards only provide a public forum in regular meetings, not in special meetings. So I put both of them, but that's also something that you can do. I would probably recommend that you leave it on both, but you can exercise right now and tell me that you only want it in regular meetings, because one meeting a month is regular, everything else is a special meeting. So you tell me what you prefer to see.
Are you two okay if we just leave it the way it is at regular and special meetings?
Yeah, we'll do it on both types of meetings, man.
Yeah. And then, again, if it turns into a problem, we come back and visit.
Yes, ma'am.
Very well.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 2 on that policy statement, Mr. Villarreal. The second to the last line on item number 2. Information provided must include a name, contact information, blah, 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 blah. I suggest the statement should read, information provided must include their name, the name of the person that's going to be speaking, not a name, not just anybody's name, but their name.
Very well, ma'am.
For the record, then we know who was there, who spoke. And then the last line on item number 2 says, subject matter must pertain to an item on the agenda. Good. Go to statement number 5. Statements must be related to La Jolla Housing Authority business. That's not the same as an item on the agenda.
Well, if somebody wanted to bring a concern about something to do with their housing unit and say, I have something broken, that's kind of our business. So I want to give them that latitude. It doesn't have to be something on the agenda, but it can be something that they want to talk about parking issues, and they can come talk to us about playground issues. They can talk to us about more broad.
Yeah. However, those are contradictory statements, because the top says it has to be an item on the agenda. And then 5 says, oh no, it can be about playground equipment. It can be about anything. Again, commissioners, what is your feeling? do we let public comments
We,
be
we,
about
we, we can have
anything?
both. If we leave it like this, it's gonna create a problem, because you're like the way you say, you contradict yourself by what you want to be presented, or that person presents their concern in the meeting, because one of them says, that it has to be agenda item, and then if they complain about their faucet or sink or whatever, and it leaves it more or less in a gray area. So
Yeah,
I guess we can go ahead and do it. That they could go ahead and it could be related to any La Jolla housing business, which would be agenda items or personal matters for them,
You want me to
However-
or
combine it in
anything
one?
that presses, any issue that presses them, or whatever.
however, and I appreciate that we are giving anyone an open door to come in and speak about any concern that they have. But
Yes.
is that not why we have staff members in the office, that they can come and vent, or they can come and state their complaints to staff and let staff take care of those things?
My experience, using my experience in the city, ma'am, I want to tell you that probably 75% of the comments that we had, public comments, didn't have to do with an agenda item and had to do with something within the realm of their environment. It was a street,
Yeah.
it was a street light, for example. Agenda items were the questions to agenda items were much less frequently than something that they experienced that they felt urgency about, whether it be trash pickup, or whether it can be a variety of things. But I can get that number 2 and just put an or and
Wait, we're not done with the discussion.
Okay.
And why I'm posing this question is because I want to hear from both our commissioners. Do we want to open the door? And granted, we've not had a lot of people come up. There are some entities, cities, other boards that do get people who come and just I'm angry about this, I want to say this, I want to get it off my chest. And it may be something, there's no item on the agenda regarding the fact that my plumbing was not fixed on time and you people aren't doing your job. But that's the sort of concern that I think should be taken care of by staff. And if a tenant feels that staff's not listening, then they can come
Right.
and say so.
Yeah, well,
Ms. Mireles, what's your thinking?
I agree. I think that should be not all there. I think there should be a separate situation on separate location, or somebody else taking care of it. And the complaints and all that, not in the agenda. I agree with what you're saying. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hassan, were you going to say something else?
No, well, I would think that would be better, I guess, just to stick into the agenda item. But you can go ahead and word it. If your subject matter isn't related to something other than the agenda item, feel free to go ahead and talk to executive director or in-house personnel.
Correct. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
and
that would be better, man.
And so, Mr. Villarreal, we would recommend deleting item number 5 because it's taken care of at the top. Subject matter must pertain, and it's even in bold letters, must pertain to an item on the agenda. Everything else, I think, is very well stated.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr.
I made note of that, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. We go, anything else, commissioners?
Not at the time.
No? We go on to item number 7, approving the time clock guidelines and procedures, policies and procedures. And that's pretty cut and dry, black and white. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
None?
We're using the
I
time
have
clock
none
that it should, the point of interest here, maybe not the reason that you're seeing this is because we have a time clock now. In the past, we actually couldn't afford a time clock. And
Couldn't afford one?
no, ma'am.
Really?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
But Ms. Valdez, you know, as we've been in COVID mode, we've had kind of a schedule that's been sometimes remotely or whatnot, but she had the foresight to ask for a time clock as we move, or
Okay.
we're hoping move forward to more regular hours. So we have a thumbprint time clock.
Yeah.
So I don't want to implement the time clock without having a policy that addresses it. And yes, it's pretty straightforward.
It is. Thank you. We go on to item number 8, the policy statement for records management, retention and disposition of records that are required to be kept. Opening question, Mr. Villarreal. Do we have a records management officer?
No, ma'am.
That's you.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, me.
Right. Okay.
Now, this one is a direct draw. This one I pull straight. This is the only one because of the sensitivity of some of the subject matter having to do with timing. If you look through there, it gives times on just about everything you can possibly imagine that exists in a housing authority. So this one came from, the only one that came directly from THA, Texas Housing Association. This is their draft that they use and they recommend. It shows, if you go through it, it's easier to tell you what has to be kept longer than 5 years. 5 years is kind of a rule of thumb. And obviously some of the things that are permanent are like titles and stuff like that, which is pretty self-explanatory. But things like a physical needs assessment, we don't have one we're working on right now, has to be kept for 10 years. And I went on that, what has to be kept longer. Unemployment record claims have to be kept 10 years. So, but most everything is 5 years. And just as informational, we have records that date back to when the housing authority started in the 90s. And
where are those records?
They're stored in our outside warehouse.
What outside warehouse?
We have a small outside warehouse where we store some varied supplies.
The little building to the west of the...
To the southwest, yes.
And there are records there from 1990?
Yes, ma'am.
So according to this proposed retention schedule, you will be able to destroy some of these records.
Yes, we don't destroy them. We hire a bonded company to come and shred them.
That's destroying them.
Yes.
Because the company comes in and they give you a list of the records that they take. You mark them as destroyed, sent for destruction. There's a process.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when we do that, and you did say in the policy statement that you would be working with a professional company, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
They will either shred the records. And again, Housing Authority has to maintain documentation that in fact, those records were taken and were destroyed.
Exactly.
That's why I'm asking, will you be cleaning out those records?
Yes. That's the purpose of this. We have records, like say in the 90s that deal with the early 2000s.
Yeah.
We have records that just are all over the office that have different times from the early 2000s. And when I was trying to figure out what to do with them all, I realized, and I was told that there was a system. We had no process in place. So this is what this is. This is a process to be able to handle those records appropriately through a bonded company. It comes and picks them up. And like you say, they give you documentation that they were picked up and properly handled, properly shredded.
My question is, will you be destroying the records that are out of schedule?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And
the
I will
last line?
I'm sorry?
The last line on that first page? backup of electronic data. Okay, that statement there is the cut and paste.
What some companies offer, you can put your stuff on like on microfiche or microfilm. I don't know which one it is
Right.
these days,
Right.
but we don't have any of that in our system.
Are we going to have? Then why is this statement there? Are we going to back up electronic data from here on in?
I'm not. I want to see how much data I have left after we're done, and then we'll decide, because we're gonna have to go through the files manually. Obviously, it's not gonna be just we have to go through box. Some boxes aren't even marked.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. So
I've done the job, Mr. Villarreal.
Okay.
So I know.
See, I haven't done the job, and
Yeah.
nor has the housing authority done that job. So
If you want me to volunteer, I'll go through there and tell you which ones have to be destroyed. Okay,
you know
so
what? Maybe
here, this last statement, instead of putting in that disclaimer, put something to the effect that as the need arises and for future reference, electronic storage will be considered, something like that. Because this is the cut and paste. And you don't want that in you want your policy statements to be professional. Page number 2. This is what we've been talking about. Records disposition and destruction. Again, cut and paste toward the end of the first line. Records may be retained for a longer duration than the schedule listed above. There was no list above this. Instead of listed above, just put records may be retained for a longer duration than referenced in the schedule that we are going to be approving. The last statement, the last sentence there, the PHA may at its discretion, please put the La Jolla Housing Authority may at its discretion retain documents indefinitely. And then we have several pages that say which, it's the retention schedule. You will keep this record, you will keep this record, so long, etc. And I understand that, or maybe I am not understanding correctly. The retention schedule, is it a combination of the Texas Library System retention schedule? That's what every government entity follows. And the retention schedule as required by HUD? Is that what this compilation is?
As I can tell from what I read, that this is the requirements not probably for Texas and for HUD.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, THA has, of course, small introductory paragraphs, and I did read some of the information, but like I say, this was pulled directly from them, and I really didn't want to change it too much because it seemed very technical. If you look at some of the things here, we don't even own. You know, some of the things here we don't even own. And keep in mind also, as a matter of full disclosure, Dr. Leo, when I came in October of 2019, there's very few records from 2019 to about 2017, 2016. There's a kind of a gap.
You had said, yeah.
Everything else kind of 2015 back, I do have something, but current, that's the crazy part, unfortunate part. We don't have current records of sorts.
Okay, if you will go to the last page of the retention schedule. And then go one page over, because those pages are not numbered. At the very top of the page, it says waiting list, ongoing. So that's the end of the retention schedule, right?
Yes, ma'am.
At first, I didn't understand why that was there. Okay, and then references, item number 1 is why I asked the question, because it says the retention schedule for records to all local governments is the Texas State Library and Archives Commission and the public housing ACC, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that tells us that the retention schedule is made up of both of, I'm assuming, both of those entities. So we know that we are in full compliance.
Correct, ma'am.
Okay. I read the policy statements.
I
Sorry,
did too.
folks.
It was, I want to tell you something that is this going to give us a kind of a brand new start of sorts if we can go back and know that the record that we have in our possession in whatever form are ours and are valid and are useful.
Oh,
But we have
yes.
so many files that are just, 2000,
I
2001.
believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. If they go back to 1990 and you
Oh,
know
now
they all need to be retained, they don't. And when will you be looking at a company to do the collection and destruction of our?
I did the research. I don't have the name of the company, but there's one bonded company in the valley that I found out of Mission,
Only
as a matter
one?
of fact. I'm sorry?
Only
I don't-
one?
Only one that I found in the valley. Yes.
The one that's in Westlaco or Mercedes out there?
I think it's out of Mission. I believe it's out of Mission.
Then there are two.
Then there are two? Okay. I found one out of Mission.
Okay. And so you will be bringing that back to us?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
To approve their contract?
This is a process. This is just the first step of probably many.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Commissioners, we have gone through items 1 through 8 on the agenda, and we have a motion to approve those items now that we have discussed them.
With changes, ma'am.
We will need an amendment that we approve them with, no, we don't need an amendment because discussion was just,
Right.
it's part of Robert's rules.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion to, no, the motion is already on the floor. Commissioners, those who approve items 5, 6, 7, and 8 policy statements as we have discussed, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Balsam, did you say aye?
Yeah, he's
I think
waving his
you're
hand.
muted. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. We then have the resolution. Item number 9, resolution addressing the need to update housing payment standards for the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. Mr. Villarreal?
This became necessary because the last time that rents were looked at were 3 years ago. We do have some landlords that are proposing increases, and we advised them that the increases had a process. Right now, we're not providing them a process to make any kind of adjustments to their properties. So this right here is going to give them the possibility to exercise that possibility. And I mean, I can read it. It's a resolution. Just
I think we have the statement. Do you have the statement before you, Mr. Balsam, Ms. Mireles?
This is a tool that they will use if they choose to go reassess their property and increase their rent. So that was done the last time, according to what Amanda told me, was done 3 years ago, and it hasn't been done since. And we do have some landlords that are requesting that opportunity.
Okay. And related to this, before I call for a motion, Mr. Villarreal, the email from Greg Krause to you dated March 12th about the HCV leasing potential.
It's
okay.
It
How does
dovetails.
this impact that email? And commissioners, that email was notifying Mr. Villarreal actually that we ended the 2020 year with a significant amount of leasing potential. Sounds to me as though we did not use our leasing potential as well as we could have, which will result in a loss of 13%, Mr. Villarreal?
Could, yes, ma'am.
that it could.
Yes.
A loss of 13% because we did, in layman's terms, what was Mr. Kraus saying?
He was saying that we didn't have the capacity we should have. We should have 100% capacity. Some of those problems, Dr. Leo, it wasn't that we didn't have capacity. Our staff right now is being trained in the EPIC system, which is user verification. So we're still having those struggles. So even though we were at a much higher capacity, we were struggling to try to make the necessary adjustments in that system. As we stand right now, nobody in our system can operate EPIC efficiently. We're just learning how to do that, and we're learning as a group. And the EPIC system, the EPIC or the EPIC system, is what really drives all this and gives this information sustainability and compliance. So the fact that we were a bit tardy in addressing EPIC or being able to put the right information in EPIC affected us. And he's well aware of that too. I told him we're training in EPIC and he's been patient, but our ability to be able to grab that and navigate it quickly, it's affected us in several ways, and this is one of them.
When do you anticipate we will be completely up to par? That you could say we are where we should be?
We've taken some online trainings, but more are necessary. And what happened was that the training mechanisms in the beginning weren't adapted to teaching online. Everything was done in person. So let's just say the first half or more than that, actually 2/3 of the pandemic, the people that were able to train us weren't equipped to work on virtual systems. Everything was done in person. So now they're more up to par, and they have both systems available, but we are going to try to train our people as best we possibly can in EPIC and possibly bring in some trainers. We need a lot of work on EPIC, and EPIC is that one key that opens up many doors. Until we master that, it's going to affect us. But I explained to him, and he basically said, get trained.
Okay.
HUD is not, if you know HUD, they're not very accommodating, but they just want results, and I don't blame them. We need to be up to par.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners, over the resolution, the board resolution authorizing, that will govern the collections and what we do about that, the charging and the collections of HCV Section 8. Any questions from either of you?
At this moment.
No. Okay, I call for a motion to approve resolution 03-21-1A.
Mr. Hassan.
Mr. Bassan, we're not hearing you. I think you're on mute.
You're muted, sir.
There we go.
Can you hear, sir? He's still muted. Pick up your hand. Okay. He's picking up his hand as a motion that we. Okay.
I second the motion.
We have no sound.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
There.
Yes,
Yes.
now we can.
I should move that we approve board resolution 03-21-1A.
Thank you, sir.
Agenda.
Thank you. Ms. Mireles?
Yes, and I second the motion.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Leo.
Those who approve this resolution signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. And just a final question. What is the transaction list that was in our packet, Mr. Villarreal?
The bills we pay. The bills we pay.
Okay.
The bills we pay.
But we don't know how much we paid.
Let me see. Do I have it here?
There's no amount.
Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, sir.
Well, for future reference, I would think that all these checks need to have an amount here so we can see what's getting spent,
Right.
what's going in and out.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell Amanda.
Because,
She's
I
on.
mean, it just has the check number, but it doesn't say how much the check was made to.
Correct.
And we need to have an amount for every check that gets dispersed to these vendors.
Okay, I'll get you a revised report and I'll have it delivered that has the amounts.
Thank you. Yeah. All it did was pique my curiosity. Really? We paid such and such? How much?
Yeah.
The amounts.
Okay.
Can you,
Look.
Mr. Real, if you can go ahead and provide it by email,
Okay,
That
if
works.
you can,
I will.
to all the commissioners.
We'll do that.
I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. We have taken care of all the business for today, and I apologize for all the questioning. It took a little longer.
You did
But
good.
we got some good
Yeah.
work
It
done.
was very interesting.
Thank
It was
you.
good.
A motion to adjourn, please.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Mr. Balsan. Second,
I second the motion.
Ms. Mireles. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Can you give me a time,
both.
ma'am?
And
Give me a
thank you,
time.
Mr. Villarreal, for bringing
you.
us
Dr.
to
Lee,
this
can you
point.
give me a time, ma'am? A time?
Monday? Oh, yes.
A time.
We need a time.
6:21.
6:21.
Okay.
I got it, ma'am. Thank you so much. God bless you
You
all.
all, you all take care.
Y'all
Y'all
Bye-bye.
have a good day.